so usually Steam sales come and go all the time, but this week has been absolutely on fire. I've been seeing some prices that only show up during the big seasonal sales, and many are AAA games, RPGs, and titles that often never drop below $20, but are suddenly sitting at $6 or $7 right now. So as usual, I went ahead and picked the best ones I could find, but made sure every single one of them is under $10. And trust me, none of these games are the usual filler you see in every Steam sale video. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with Star Wars Battlefront, currently at $4.99. This is the one from DICE that came out in 2015, and I know it got a lot of backlash when it released. But at $5, it's a very different conversation. What this game does well is atmosphere. The sound design is incredible, the visuals still hold up, and if you're a Star Wars fan, just walking around as a stormtrooper on Hoth with that classic music in the background is worth the price alone. The multiplayer isn't as active as it used to be, and there's no campaign mode, but I'd recommend to just pay an extra $5 and get the sequel at $10 instead. It's better than the first game in almost every way, where you get an original single-player campaign, way more heroes and villains, and a much more active multiplayer mode. Next is Green Hell at $2.49 right now. This is a survival game set in the Amazon jungle, and it's probably one of the most punishing ones out there. You have to manage your hunger and thirst, but also your carbs, fats, and protein separately. You have to watch your sanity, because being alone in the jungle too long messes with your head. You gotta check your arms and legs for leeches, craft bandages for snake bites, and figure out what plants are safe to eat before you accidentally poison yourself. It sounds like a lot, and honestly it is, but the game teaches you slowly, and the jungle itself is incredibly well made. There's also a story mode that's surprisingly decent. You're looking for your wife who disappeared in the jungle, and you find clues that piece together what happened. Even at full price, it's still worth it, let alone buying it for $2. Nioh is one of those games that doesn't get as much love as it deserves, probably because it came out around the same time as a bunch of other hard action games and people just sort of forgot about it. You can grab it for $4.99 right now. It's a perfect mix of Dark Souls and Ninja Gaiden with a Japanese touch. The combat is faster than Souls, with stances you can switch between on the fly and a stamina system that you can actually pulse back mid-fight if your timing is right. It's challenging for sure, but not in a cheap way. Every death feels like your fault because you got greedy or forgot to watch your stamina. You can grab Battlefield 1 for just $1.99 right now, and it's one of those shooters that just feels different from everything else. It's set in World War I, which nobody really expected to work, but they somehow pulled it off because the atmosphere is just incredible. The screams, the explosions, the muddy trenches, the way the ground shakes when a massive behemoth shows up. It all feels huge and chaotic in the best way. The single-player war stories are short but genuinely memorable, and multiplayer is still active enough to find matches even 10 years later. Even if you just play the campaign and never touch multiplayer, you're still getting way more than your money's worth. Need for Speed Heat is probably the best modern Need for Speed game they've made in years. You can pick it up for $7 right now. It splits the difference between the underground street racing vibe and a legit cop chaser, and it actually works. During the day, you race for money and reputation, nice and legal, building up your ride and unlocking parts, but at night, it's a whole different game. The cops are relentless, way smarter and more aggressive than you expect, and one wrong turn can turn a simple race into a 20-minute escape through the swamps and highways. The story is nothing special, but the driving is what makes it. By the way, if this video is helping you out, feel free to like and subscribe to support the channel. A good list takes time to make, and your support really means a lot. Ad Infinitum is a horror game that doesn't get talked about enough. You can grab it for $4 and it's set in World War I, which already makes it different from your typical haunted house or abandoned asylum setup. You play as a German soldier trying to survive not just the trenches, but whatever is inside his own head. The game switches between bleak battlefield environments and creepy family home sections, and it does a pretty good job of keeping you confused in a good way. It's not all jump scares either. There's a lot of atmosphere and weird imagery that will stick with you for a long time. The Saboteur is at $2 right now. This game is a bit of a hidden gem that a lot of people have forgotten about. You play as an Irish guy named Sean in World War II Paris, and your objective is to blow up Nazi installations while working with the French resistance. The most distinctive feature is the black and white and color system. The city starts out completely desaturated and lifeless under Nazi control, but as you liberate different districts, the color returns and it gives you a tangible sense of progress. You are getting a complete open-world game with a visual style that remains unique to this day. Assassin's Creed Unity had a notoriously bad launch, and for years that was the only thing anyone talked about. But after all the patches and updates, what's left is actually one of the more interesting entries in the series. It's around $7 on Steam. The parkour here is the best in the entire franchise. Arno actually moves the way you want him to, with a level of control and fluidity that later games never quite matched. Paris looks stunning, and the combat is harder than other AC games, so you actually have to think instead of just countering everyone. It's an Assassin's Creed that actually feels like one. Managing a restaurant in real life is a nightmare, but doing it from your couch for $4 is actually pretty great. In Chef Life, you're not just clicking through menus like in a mobile game, you're actually hands-on in the kitchen chopping veggies, grilling steaks, and plating everything yourself. Timing is everything. You have to coordinate each dish so the whole table gets their food at the same time. Then, you've got suppliers to manage, new recipes to unlock, and a dining room to decorate so your rating goes up. It's different than the rest of the games here, but definitely has its own vibe. Now next is another simulation game at $1.50, but this one is way less serious. In Surgeon Simulator, you play as a surgeon with the worst hand-eye coordination imaginable, trying to perform heart transplants and kidney removals with controls that feel designed to fail. You're supposed to be a surgeon, but you'll end up throwing organs across the room and accidentally smacking your patient in the face with a hammer. The whole thing is deliberately janky and frustrating, and that's exactly why it's so funny. It's not the kind of game you sink hours into, but it's perfect for those nights when you just want to laugh your ass off. Like a Dragon is legitimately one of the best JRPGs from the last few years, and it's somehow down to 7.99 right now. The series switched from beat 'em up to turn-based combat for this one, and it worked out way better than anyone expected. You play as Ichiban, a new protagonist with a big heart who sees the world through the lens of classic RPGs, which explains all the job classes and random encounters in a modern city setting. The story is excellent, the side content is genuinely funny, and the city of Yokohama feels alive with activities around every corner. It's a perfect starting point for newcomers. Dragon's Dogma is down to 3.59 right now, and I honestly don't know why more people don't talk about this game. It's an action RPG from Capcom that came out around the same time as Skyrim, so it got completely overshadowed. The combat is fantastic. You can climb on giant monsters like a Shadow of the Colossus game, and the magic spells actually feel powerful and destructive. The story's kinda nonsense, and there's a lot of walking back and forth, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is so good that none of that really matters. For $3, this is an insane amount of game. Immortals of Aveum flew under the radar when it came out, but at $6 right now, it's worth a second look. It's a first-person shooter, but instead of guns, you use magic, so you're zapping people with lightning and firing wind blasts and all that stuff. The combat is fast and flashy, the spell effects look great, and it's got that whole big-budget fantasy cinematic thing going on. If you like shooters and you want something a little different from the usual military setting, this is a good pick at this price. You're getting a solid 20-hour campaign with some really fun encounters. Submerged is a quiet little game, and at $2 there's almost no risk in trying it. There's no combat, no enemies, no way to die. You just sail a small boat around a flooded city and climb up ruined buildings to find supplies for your injured brother. That's it. The whole experience is about atmosphere and exploration and taking in the view. You can finish it in a couple hours, and honestly, it's a nice palate cleanser between bigger, more stressful games. Some people will find it boring, others will find it relaxing, but for $2, it's worth seeing which one you are. One Piece World Seeker is an open-world action game set in the One Piece universe, and at $6, it's a decent deal if you're a fan of the series. You play as Luffy, swinging around islands with his rubber powers and fighting enemies with simple but flashy combat. The world is pretty big, and there's a lot of things to find. The story's original, and the characters look and sound like they should, which is really what matters for an anime game like this. If you're not into One Piece, this probably won't change your mind, but fans will get some solid enjoyment out of just zipping across islands and doing rubber punches. Battlefield Hardline is at $2, and this one little different than the rest of the series. Instead of soldiers and military battles, you're playing as a cop named Nick Mendoza working through a story that plays out like a TV crime drama. The campaign mixes things up with stealth sections where you sneak around with a badge, car chases where you're driving through city streets, and more traditional shootouts. The multiplayer never really took off like the main Battlefield games, but at $2 the campaign alone is worth it. You can also still find a few people online if you're lucky, but don't expect huge full servers. So, hopefully you found something worth picking up. And if not, I usually post this type of videos every other week, so make sure to subscribe if you want to stay updated for more. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.